Hello, guys, and welcome back to episode number 2 of the Two Tonys Bearsy podcast and other random musings. Unfortunately, tonight I don't have two Tonys on the show. You've only got one Tony, but you do have a Zack. I'm joined by Zack Pearson. Zack, does the Tony and the Zack Bearsy podcast work? I don't know. I don't think it has the same ring.
Yeah, we'll have to find a different name.
Definitely, man. Definitely. How's things? Everything going okay with yourself?
Yeah, no, it's going good. Get a little bit of a break as we were talking before the show. The draft week is hectic. It's, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, nonstop. And then it's Sunday still, with undrafted free agents and grades and all this good stuff, takeaways. So it's kind of nice to get couple free days here. Then rookie mini camp, they announced today that rookie mini camp is like May 9th to the 11th. And then boom, OTAs, mini camp. And before you know it, it'll be end of June. And then we'll be looking at training camp. So nice to get some time off.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And obviously there's been a few kind of talking points that have been ongoing from the last week. The biggest one that we'll kind of dive into right away is the draft. We've been looking forward to it all year. We've been building up to it since December time, basically, or January time. First round, first night, a lot of expectations, a lot of trade talk, a lot of this, that, and the next thing. Colston Loveland, tight end, Michigan. Was that on your bingo card for the first night of the draft?
Not really. It's funny because before the draft, I did a podcast with some of my co-hosts and writers, and I said two things. I said I'd be a little disappointed if it was a tight end overall, just because I thought, offensive tackle or running back, with Genty, probably would have been the moves that would have, excited me a little more. Yeah. But I also said, if I preferred Colston Loveland to Tyler Warren, did I think they're going to take Colston Loveland? No, I had no idea. I do think it was interesting, all day we saw the smoke about maybe possibly trading up. And then, it comes out that Jacksonville and Cleveland have been working on something for 2 weeks. So it never really materialized for the Bears. I'm a little surprised they took Loveland in the moment. But after kind of looking at his tape a little more, doing some research, listening to Ryan Poles, and then listening to Ben Johnson later on, you see why they took him. And I think it's pretty clear, separation, ability to kind of be a wide receiver as well, be a factor in the passing game. So it does make sense, but it was a little bit of a surprise to me in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's kind of look at the player himself, though. 3 years at Michigan, 1,400 yards, averaging about 12 and a half yards per catch, 11 touchdowns. Had a bit of a drop in production last year. I think a lot of that's probably to do with the change in quarterback there, though, in Michigan, and I think that's probably overlooked quite a bit as well. But regardless of that, Michigan became quite a run-heavy sort of offense. But Colston Loveland was still the top receiver in the team, so he's obviously kind of doing that, even in the situation where you don't maybe have the right sort of guy passing the ball to you. But did you have any sort of concerns with that? And also, just on the back of that as well, in terms of the sort of injury concerns that were coming out regarding the shoulder surgery and all that kind of thing. First impressions when you thought about that?
Yeah, I don't have too much of a concern with the production. Like you said, watching Michigan last year, I watched a couple games. They were just a bad passing team. Their quarterbacks could just not figure it out at all. And I think, watching what they did in the portal this year, offering a lot of money to that top quarterback, showed, we got to figure this out, because last year they had to become a more run heavy team, because years prior, even though they had, JJ McCarthy, they still like to run the ball a lot more with Donovan Edwards and a couple other guys. But it was, oddly enough, Ryan Poles said it. He was like, when we watched, we did our due diligence on JJ McCarthy, and we watched his tape going into that draft, we noticed a lot of Colston Loveland. So they kind of got a little bit of a preview, as probably did other teams. So they kind of knew what to expect, but production doesn't really bother me. I know there's a couple clips that were on Twitter of quarterback airmailing the ball. Loveland's open by 5 to 10 yards, and the ball is just completely airmailed. So the production doesn't worry me too much. The injury, I wouldn't say much either. He said it's a 6-month process. He's 3 months in. He actually said he's got full motion with his arm. He just can't do any contact, and they're probably not going to have him do any heavy lifting. I'd be shocked if he participated in rookie minicamp. He'll probably go out there and do some jogs and kind of go through the walkthroughs. But in terms of practicing, I think we'll kind of see him maybe in June for minicamp, do a little more. But I'd expect he's ready full for training camp. And I wouldn't be, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked or I wouldn't be alarmed if he misses the first week or two of training camp. I know it brings back some memories because, Kieran Amagaji missed time, Nick Davis would miss time, just guys like that. I wouldn't be too worried on this.
Yeah, no, I think I'm sort of in the same boat as yourself, Zach, to be honest with you. Although to play devil's advocate, obviously, you look at the ability, you look at the tape.
Yeah.
He screams out he's a definite top end player. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. I think the concern that you have is there's that natural thing with tight ends when they come into the league at first that they usually take a bit longer to adapt, given that they're doing both. The receiver's job and the offensive lineman's job at times as well. We've seen Cole Kmet struggle his first sort of season he was here as well. We went a long time without getting any touchdowns there. So, I think the concern I had initially was that coupled with missing OTAs, possibly missing a bit at the start of training camp as well. But do you think that we're maybe putting too much emphasis on this guy being an immediate impact as opposed to you're joining a room full of pretty elite receivers and you've got time to sort of develop?
Yeah, it was a crowded room when they drafted him on Thursday night. It got even more crowded when they drafted Luther Burden the next night.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect, what a season like Cole Kmet had a couple years. I wouldn't expect 500, 600 receiving yards, 6-7 touchdowns right off the bat because they're going to use Kmet, they're going to use Loveland, they're going to use Burden, Odunze, DJ Moore. They got a couple running backs now. So, yeah, I wouldn't expect a top rookie season by any means. But, I also don't expect him to go out and have like a Mercedes Lewis. And I know they're two different types of players, but or Robert Tonyan type year a couple years ago where it was very minimal. I think he'll make an impact. I think he actually might get more targets than Cole Kmet if he's healthy. We'll have to kind of see because I do think he brings a lot more to the receiving game. He's kind of seems like more of a natural, type of receiver at the position. And they can interchange now. They can kind of do some things with the Y and the X and 12 personnel, kind of freeing up things. So maybe, if you do, I don't think this will be the case, but if you like in Kieran's, case last year, missing all of training camp, you're already behind as a rookie. You're even more behind. It's like a redshirt year. I don't think that'll be the case here. I do think it'll be a little bit of a slower year for Loveland, kind of learning the game. Like you said, Cole Kmet kind of have a slow year his first year. So, yeah, I don't think expectations should be too high, but I also don't think it's going to be a colossal bust. But I warn, if he's not putting up huge numbers because he's the number 10 pick, there's going to be that national media. It's like, oh, why'd the Bears take him there at 10 and kind of things like that. My best advice, just ignore that stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the interesting thing is, we look at Ben Johnson and I think everyone's trying to see how he's going to put together the Detroit offense. But I think I go back to something that he said kind of near the start of his tenure when he was talking about, I'm going to make the Bears offense based on who we have here. And I think they've sort of brought players in based on what they have there already and sort of built from there. And that kind of smoothly takes me on to Luther Burden. A lot of people were sort of talking about him being a first round pick. And the Bears are very lucky to get him. There's been a lot of folk talking about how he's actually one of the sort of top players in the full draft, never mind just a first round sort of pick. Again, I think when you add him to this offense, it just, and when you think of Ben Johnson as well, like what he can do, how he can scheme things up. How do you see Luther Burden fitting into this scenario, given the fact we've already got DJ Moore on one side and we've got Rome Odunze on the other?
Yeah, it's interesting because they really like Travion Henderson. And he went the pick right before to New England. They even tried trading up for him and calling New England. I think they were going to go up to where Tennessee, I think it was Tennessee or Jacksonville was, one of the two, and get him. And it's just the price to pay was too much. So you're sitting there your guy goes, Luther Burden's still there. It made sense to me. I was actually talking to someone in the media room, and we're like, New England's got to go Luther Burden. Like, they give Drake May a weapon. Well, they didn't. We're both like, oh, wow, okay, maybe the Bears will go after him. So I think Burden kind of fits. I think, to your point last year, if you look at these early mocks, like, June, July, even early season, he was like top 15, top 10 in a lot of these mocks. And production wasn't there, his last year. Could be several factors. There was bad quarterback play at Missouri. Overall, it was a disappointing year for Missouri. They were expected to go to the college football playoff after the year that they had. The quarterback got hurt, struggled. NIL is also a factor. I don't know if this is the case for Burden, but, you see guys get NIL deals. They're getting paid a lot more. It's a different game now. But I think, he fell because of the production. He fell because if you watch some of his tape, as much as I love him as a player, there are times where if he's not getting the ball, it's kind of taken off a couple plays. You have to be able to fix that at the NFL level. You have to have the guys to fix that at the NFL level in terms of your coaching staff. I think he landed in a really good spot. He might have been a little frustrated seeing that there's DJ Moore and, Roma Dunze, and they just brought in Zacchaeus and Devin Duvernay. They have Tyler Scott. But if you work hard, you're going to get those targets, and he should be the favorite to be the number 3 wide receiver. So I think he fits fine. I think after the catch, the speed's there, the quickness is there. He showed it to you as a receiver and as, on special teams. So he's kind of another one of those guys where, like a Dunze last year had high expectations, and he kind of had a quote unquote down year just due to the high expectations. I don't think it was a down year at all. You're probably going to see that same type of thing with Burden, but if there's one player I think is going to make the immediate impact, I honestly think it's going to be him right away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you mentioned the yards after the catch. He's up there, and we know that Ben Johnson is going to scheme people open, and if you get that guy open, he's going to pick up a ton of yardage for you. So it's absolutely huge. But yeah, so 3 seasons in Missouri, and 13 games I think he played in the last 2 years. 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, it's just a guy that was 2023, 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. So that was his sort of big year, if you like. But it would be great to see how that sort of develops over time. I don't think all of those wide receivers are going to stick on the team. One question I did have about Luther, though, is, a lot's been made about, the way he comes across, his sort of attitude, and, it's something different for the Bears. Like, you don't always have that. I think the last guy you had on the Bears wide receiver team was probably Brandon Marshall, like a long time ago, who had that same sort of swagger. What sort of impression did you get from the person when he was sort of talking?
Yeah, I mean, the first night we talked to him, you got to put a couple things, into play here. There's a lot of factors. He didn't go in the first round. He was probably very disappointed by that. It's an emotional moment. You're with your family, you're with your friends. So I think, the first night we talked to him, a couple short answers, a couple of maybe frustrated answers that he wasn't taken in the first round. I didn't get the sense that he was mad. He was taken, by the Bears, who already have a couple wide receivers. I think the next day when we actually got to talk to him in person, he opened up a little bit more and he was a little more confident. You just kind of get that confidence from him. And someone brought it up. I think it was Nicholas Mariano brought up, like, how Ben Johnson preaches the, no block, no rock. And Luther's answer was like, yeah, I'm down with that. I love the block. So we'll have to see. I didn't kind of get that negative attitude. I really didn't, I just thought it was a kid frustrated that he wasn't drafted in the first round. He believes he's a first round talent. And like I said, there's a lot of emotions going on. You got to think these guys are going through a lot with their cell phones. And now you add into it, now 3 players have gotten prank called, I think this year they said. So, like, there's that factor as well. It's like, it's just becoming, it's becoming just like a kind of a circus type thing, but we'll see.
Absolutely. So moving on, I'm going to just kind of touch on some of the kind of higher taken players today. And we'll sort of look at the other guys as we go along. But Ozzie Trapilo, tackle out of Boston College, was the next sort of second round pick. We all thought going into this draft we were going to take something in the trenches at some point. I was a big Kelvin Banks Jr. guy. Obviously, he went in 9. I always wonder whether or not if he'd been available at 10, if he'd have been taken by the Bears at that point,
Yeah.
which is an interesting conversation. But it wasn't to be, and we ended up with Ozzy Trapilo, which, if you look at the player himself, huge guy for a start, 6'8", very versatile as well. I think he's played half of the games at Boston College at right tackle and half at left tackle, something along the lines of that anyway. And interestingly, dubbed the most pro-ready tackle in the class, which is what you want with these guys coming out. Given the way that Ben Johnson sort of can run a sort of kind of heavy up front offensive schemes, maybe 6 offensive linemen, how important do you think it was for the Bears to get that pick right, considering the guys that they've maybe got playing at tackle just now with Amagaji, who maybe didn't have the best year, maybe needs a wee bit more time to develop? How important is it that Trapilo comes in and makes a sort of impact this season?
I mean, he's going to get a chance to right away. I'm in the camp that I believe I was high on Banks Jr. as well. That's why I picked them to take in my final mock. And I thought if he was there, they probably would have taken him at 10. But the Saints, as the weeks went on, the Saints, with Ramczak and Spencer Penning not getting, his option picked up, they were going to take an offensive tackle. And, that's how the board fell. 3 offensive tackles in, the first 9 picks. So, but, with Trapilo, it's interesting. Like you said, he's 6'8". He's a big kid. Everything I've read kind of projects him to be a right tackle. I think they're going to try him at left tackle too. But he's going to get a shot to compete. And Ben Johnson said from day one, they want competition at every position. And I thought it was interesting where his answer, actually, he said it's going to be interesting when asked about left tackle. They have no depth chart right now. We've kind of heard, mummers or questions of, will Darnell Wright move over to the left side? I personally would keep him on the right side. That's just me. I'm not an evaluator, though, because I don't think putting Trapilo or anyone else at right tackle is a better situation overall. I think it's better to keep Darnell Wright at right tackle and have one of these other guys play left tackle. But, with Ozzy, he's going to get a chance right away to come in and compete and win a job, whether that's a left tackle's job, whether they move Darnell Wright to left tackle and he goes to right tackle, whether it's a swing tackle, there's going to be an opportunity. So we'll see. I mean, I'm a little intrigued by this. No penalties, I believe he had in his final year there at Boston College. There's the Boston College connection to Ryan Poles with their fathers as well. He seems like a very motivated kid. I think he kind of understands, this is a chance for me to come in and compete. I definitely think, watching him and watching Kieran kind of battle, because, Braxton's not going to be ready for these OTAs and these mini camps. So these 2 young guys are going to get their shot, and we'll have to see who, gets the reps where, but very interesting to kind of watch here as the offseason moves on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the interesting comment from Ryan Poles as well was that, we might want to look at moving right over to left tackle, which, as soon as you heard that, you were like, oh, wait a second here, what's going on? That's interesting. But I mean, I think it's even more interesting because usually you would just have your GM come out and say, no, this is a right tackle. So the fact that he's willing to publicly have that conversation is interesting, but it also kind of I think it makes everybody sort of, prepare themselves more for going into training camp. As you said already, Ben Johnson mentioned that no one's won a starting job here yet. They've still got to settle all that out. So, although I doubt we see Caleb Williams lose his starting job. But, for most other folk, it's definitely something that may be up in the air.
There's probably one position that there's actually a depth chart, and that's definitely quarterback. Everywhere else, he's probably telling the truth.
But going from one guy who doesn't have a lot of penalties to a guy who has a few more penalties, and it's something that had a wee bit of concern for some folk, was Shamar Turner, defensive tackle from Texas A&M. Guy that, you look at his production over the last couple of years, 17 tackles for loss, 69 tackles. I think he had 6 sacks or something like that, or 8 sacks or something. Big violent guy, and with an attitude. And I always say, if your offensive lineman or defensive lineman have an attitude, you're onto a winner. You don't want nice guys up there. No. So what were your thoughts on the Turner move?
Yeah, I mean, right away, violent. I mean, he said it. He's like, I'm out there to kill. I'm out there. He doesn't respect offensive linemen. It was actually, pretty funny listening to him. He kind of fits that mold what Dennis Allen wants: physical, wants to punish you in the line of scrimmage, wants to play violent. I think that's what the Bears need. I think the Bears need that up front. And now you bring him in, and he gets to learn behind Andrew Billings and learn behind Gervon Dexter and Grady Jarrett and Montez Sweat. I think the Bears are going to be able to do a couple different things on that defensive line. But I mean, I like them. You obviously got to cut down on those penalties, those unsportsmanlike penalties. And I think with Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson, I think the first time it happens, he's going to be on the bench, and they're going to tell him, if you ever do it again, you'll be permanently on the bench. And I think he'll kind of learn. But watching him playing in the SEC, playing against some of the best linemen, and he's playing violent. He's not backing down from anyone. There's a viral clip of him, hitting someone in the spot. So yeah, as long as he doesn't do that, I'm happy with him, because I think, you can always use more depth in the trenches. And he did play a little edge at Texas A&M and then moved over to defensive tackle. I don't think they're going to put him on the edge permanently with the Bears, but I do think we're going to see some packages where you have a couple guys on the outside and you have a couple guys you didn't expect on the inside. So I just think I like this pick, but I think it also adds some versatility to what Dennis Allen can kind of do. And I think if you're looking, look at the tape, he's like the guy that you look at right now where it's like, this is what Dennis Allen wants. This is what Dennis Allen's describing. And, he was also playing with a stress fracture too. So he still was able to look impressive on tape.
Yeah, considering he was carrying that injury, and the whole thing hadn't worked properly the way it had done, it meant to have done hugely. I mean, it just shows you how tough the guy is, for definite. But finally, you talk about that video that's gone viral. Like, it was almost like a WWE kind of low blow sort of thing. Like it took me back, man, for definite. But yeah, I mean, it's funny you were talking about the versatility there. Lee in the chat here is asking, does Zach like Turner at defensive tackle or defensive end? Have you got coming out in his first year? I know you sort of touched on it a wee bit there, but would you rather that he sort of focused on one area, or do you think he's a guy you can just come in and you can put him anywhere in the line and you get something from him?
I'd probably put him at defensive tackle first, just to kind of see, because I think there's value in playing behind Grady Jarrett and Andrew Billings and having that rotation with Gervon Dexter. I'm curious to see if they're going to ask him to kind of tone up or put on some more muscle or more weight. We'll have to kind of pay attention to that, but I think they'll start him at defensive tackle first. But like I said, I think they're going to have some flexibility, man. We're like, you might see Jarrett and you might see Billings, and then you might see Dexter on the outside with Montez Sweat. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is another player that you might be able to do some things with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you've taken. We've got all these players that have been taken relatively high, especially the second rounders. You got to expect those guys to be playing. They've got to be making an impact. So it'll be interesting to see the sort of snap count and how things develop over training camp, etc. And we'll definitely check in with you for that.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of the rest of the sort of guys that were taken, obviously you had Hippolyte II. Who I admit I had never heard of before his name has been called.
I'm with you.
Frazier, cornerback from UTSA, you'd Luke Newman, the guard, and then running back Kyle Manangai. Was it out of those four guys, is there anybody that sort of like caught your eye in particular?
Well, I think the Hippolyte pick, like you said, I was a little surprised because I think on some consensus boards he was, rated kind of higher than when he was picked, which a little bit of a reach. But to me, when you look at the DB taken and you look at the linebacker taken, speed. They have one thing in common, speed. And Dennis Allen said it in the offseason, they want to add speed to this defense. Realistically, you're looking at two guys that are probably going to contribute on special teams first while providing depth. I think Zay's probably got a little bit of a tougher path to early playing time in the secondary just because you're behind Josh Blackwell, you're behind the other three, quote-unquote starters. So, yeah, those two just speed. The running back pick was interesting to me because I think they got some good value for a seventh rounder there for him. The kid out of Rutgers. And I think when you watch him, he looks like a bowling ball kind of in a way, which is kind of what the Bears want. But I also think like the Bears were sniped a little bit We talked about Henderson. The Oregon running back went a pick before they did. A couple other running backs, Caleb Johnson went. The kid from SMU went. Devin Neal from Kansas went. And you kind of watched them, and you're like, okay, the Bears are going to take a running back. And I saw some people joking like, oh yeah, here's your running back, 7th round. But I think he can play a little bit, and I think he's going to have a chance to make an impact. It'll be interesting what they do at the running back room because they got 5 guys now who you're keeping Swift. Travis Homer is probably going to make the roster for special teams value, I'd say. But then you got Roshan Johnson, who's got the injury history, the concussions. I'd say he's probably safe right now. But Ian Wheeler, he didn't play at all last year. I know he's a fan favorite. Can they put him on the practice squad? It'll be interesting to kind of watch that. But yeah, I think they got a nice bowling ball there. A nice, hard, tough runner there in the 7th round.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And the thing that stood out to me the most is obviously it's a back-to-back 1,200 yard rushing seasons, averaging 5 yards a carry, but it's the pass blocking as well.
Yeah.
For a guy that size, like he's just taking on everybody that's coming at him, sort of thing. So, that's what you want. Like you get these guys later in the draft. You hope your chance to make the team is through special teams. But if you can prove yourself to be useful in many different ways at your own position as well, statistically that guy's coming out, and you've got to think there's a good chance he could make this team, even as a 7th round pick, even though the room is pretty stacked. But yeah, I think Maranga is probably the guy who stood out to me the most. As I say, it'll be interesting to see how that actually develops. Just talking about the running back room, obviously there's been a lot of kind of chat over the last few days about potential for the Bears to maybe add some veteran running backs in there, and the biggest name that everyone's been talking about is Nick Chubb. So, like, you're obviously your finger on the pulse a lot more than I do this type of thing. How many? Is there any legs in this thing? Like, is there any truth behind it? Do you think, or do you think this is just like agents pushing things?
Yeah, I think it's more agents pushing things. I honestly wouldn't expect any of these running backs that are veteran free agents right now to sign until probably June, maybe right before training camp. The Nick Chubb thing's a little is difficult because he had that bad leg injury 2 years ago, had an injury barely played last year as well. And you're not getting the Nick Chubb that we're used to associating with the name. But do you want that veteran back there in the backfield? Because he's different type of runner than Swift is. Personally, I would lean more towards if you could acquire someone like Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet from Seattle, I would probably go that route a little more. I think they give you some more longevity. You can have them for a couple more years and play a role in your backfield. The other interesting ones, Jamal Williams down in New Orleans, or the former Saints, former Packer, former Lion. He's got this connection with Ben Johnson. But for now, I think this is kind of just typical post-draft talk where you kind of see these names pop up. The agents are trying to get information out there. Radio guys take it and make segments. I feel like if it was that easy to say, like, he's already got a deal with an NFC North team, you'd probably already see it happen maybe in a way, but who knows? I wouldn't expect anything. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I wouldn't expect anything like soon. But that's probably me just jinxing it. Once we get off this, they're probably going to be like, oh yeah, we signed this guy or something crazy like that. But
Joe,
no, I wouldn't.
I'll say, Zach, hopefully that is the case. I get the whole concern with the knee and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Totally right there. But the production of Nick Chubb over the first 5 seasons he was in the league was off the charts. Do you know what I mean? You want playmakers like that in your team. Even if you didn't get Nick Chubb doing 1,500 yards for you in the season, if you got him just doing 1,000, you'd be laughing all the way.
Oh yeah,
with that sort of thing.
You're probably going to get him on a cheap deal too.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's not going to go in his favor, unfortunately, for him. But that's a great opportunity for him. Maybe even sign a 1-year prove-it deal, come out, show that he's healthy, show that he can do it again, show that there's not going to be another re-injury or whatever, and then next season maybe get a better deal, sort of thing. But I think a guy like that can complement DeAndre Swift tremendously. He's a kind of bruiser running back as opposed to Swift, who won't run through tackles is the same way. Like he'll sort of kind of go with the more outside zone stuff. But I think it would be a tremendous, and it would sort of mimic the Detroit running backs scenario as well. And I think
Yeah.
everyone's sort of coming back to that aspect of it, because I don't think we really have that David Montgomery sort of player on the team right now. Roschon Johnson, as you say, but then again, he's not really set the head of the light since he's been here. And then there's the injury issues as well. But then again, the offensive line, I think, is a huge key. We talk about this. If these guys had all been signed or drafted by the Bears last year without us having this new renewed interior offensive line, I think you're having a very different conversation here, because I don't think you can feel as optimistic about Caleb Williams even being able to get the ball to these guys, or the running backs being able to get going. So do you feel like that's been the sort of catalyst for the prospective success that we think is going to happen, as opposed to the weapons that have been added?
Yeah, I mean, well, you look at the offensive line, and you look at last year, the interior offensive line was just brutal. Like, it was really bad. So going out, getting 3 guys, 2 via trade, 1, a signing, you secured your interior offensive line. I think you're fine with Tooney. I think you're fine with Dahlman. I still have some questions on Jonah Jackson. That's probably the biggest key to me, and then left tackle. But then you look, and like you said, I mean, last year they struggled with everything, and they struggled with the entire offense, the entire operation. It was a mess start to finish. And it's funny because you kept hearing, you challenged Matt Eberflus on it. The operation doesn't look good, Matt. Like, what are we doing here? And he just continued to say, yeah, the operation's good. We're running. And it's like, no, it's just not good. So I think last year was a total mess. I think this year, Ben Johnson's coming in and inheriting a good situation. They made the moves, and now you've got the running back position where you can address, with someone like Nick Chubb, with someone like Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet. That could help. It's going to make for a fun, like that comment was, the post-June 1st cuts too will be interesting. But it's going to make for some fun competition. And I think, the Bears are in a better situation now. They did what they could to address needs and give Caleb Williams playmaking opportunities or more playmakers. And they're trying to surround the best talent with Caleb Williams. So I think they're in a way better position than they are this year than last year. And I think that is from starting off by fixing the offensive line and kind of working out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Zach, I'll let you go in a few minutes. I know you've got other things happening today, but I just wanted to have one more subject matter that I wanted to touch on with you, is regarding a ridiculous notion I think that came up in the last sort of few days. Now, I don't know what it is with Bears fans, right? But we sign a player or we draft a player, and then we automatically means that we have to then get rid of someone else to replace them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's mad. But there was this chat came out of nowhere the other day regarding a DJ Moore trade, and I was like, why? Because we've added a second round wide receiver, because we've brought in a new tight end. I just don't get where this is coming from.
Yeah.
Where are your thoughts on this, man? Like, is this, before you answer that? Someone had tweeted something earlier on, or it was a couple of days ago, might have been Bill Zimmerman, and he was talking about there being a potential out in the contract next year, and how they may make this year a sort of an opportunity for the other guys to shine out. Rome Odunze, maybe step out and become number one. Do you think that's a plausible argument, or do you think the whole thing's nonsense?
I would probably lean more towards not. I don't even know where the rumor came from with the DJ Moore trade. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know where. I didn't even see that, to be honest. But I try to turn off my social media for a little bit after the draft to kind of relax. Yeah, that's good for my mental health and spend more time with the family. But no, I look. If it's coming from someone that's not at Hallis Hall and it's not a national figure, and I don't want to poo-poo on anyone or discredit anyone, but I trust the people I work with at Hallis Hall, in terms of reporters. I trust national guys. The Bill Zimmerman tweet was interesting. I trust Bill too. I like the work he does. Him pointing out that there is an out, which is interesting, because if the Bears, do want to get out of a contract, there you go with it. If Burden and Odunze have big years, there's the option. Trading DJ Moore right now, I would say no. I think that's crazy. I don't think that's going to happen. I'd be absolutely shocked if that happened. I just think we kind of get to the point where it's like connecting too many dots in a way where it's, oh, they drafted this guy's on the outs. I do think it's interesting though that we have heard, the no depth chart, the no block, no rock type thing. But maybe there is a little pressure on DJ Moore because last year we kind of saw some, not encouraging things when things weren't going his way. Same time, you also have to look at, it's no excuse, but you also have to look at, I mean, he's pretty much had losing seasons in his entire career. He's been with the Panthers, been with the Bears. They just haven't won. So I do think there's a little frustration, but here's what I say all the time. Winning cures everything. It cures a lot of, maybe not everything, but it cures a lot of things. So no, I definitely, I don't know where it came from, but I think it's more just post-draft speculation talk because I didn't even see it. Like I said, I didn't even see it. So that's kind of news to me, but yeah.
Well, there you go. Breaking news for you, Zach.
Yeah.
There is a lot of nonsense.
Was it just like chat? Was it just like chatter on X? Was that what kind
honestly,
of was?
Yeah, it was. It's sort of like, I don't even know where the source was, to be honest with you, but everyone just started talking about it. So I couldn't really find where the source had come from. So I was like, I'll have a wee chat about this and see what people think. I mean, for me, it's crazy. Like the guy, fair enough, there were issues last year, but the guy's proven that he's a number one wide receiver in the league. There's no doubt about it. He got us out of a lot of sticky situations in past games. But yeah, I mean, I like going back to what Ben Johnson's doing. You're lighting the fire under everybody. And that's what you need.
Want.
And everyone's sort of got renewed enthusiasm for a new season as well. So hopefully all these things come together and it proves successful. But listen, Zach, thanks very much for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Do you want to let everyone know kind of what are your plans for the next kind of few weeks? Have you got anything big coming up? And is there anything anywhere where people can find your stuff as well?
Yeah, of course. I'll be at rookie minicamp probably all 3 days. We'll have someone there for sure. At all 3 days. I'll be there, the first two for sure. OTAs will be there, mini camp will be there, training camp, and the regular season. So that's kind of what we're focusing on. You can follow me at Zack _Pearson. Thank you for spelling it right. I appreciate that. And you can read my work on bearreport.com and Bear Report's on Twitter, just Bear Report. And again, I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad 2 episodes in, I got to be one of the first people on, so I appreciate it, and good luck with it. And anytime you want to do it again, let me know.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And hopefully next time the other Tony is
he's got to get on.
Is nice enough to actually turn up. You know what I mean? No, I'm only joking. He had something
all good, man. Life happens.
All right, man.
Right?
Have a good one. Thanks very much.
Take it easy.
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right, so that was Zack Pearson joining us there just to give us his thoughts on not only the draft picks that the Bears have made, but obviously all the kind of mad rumors that have been kind of swirling around for the last few days as well. The running back situation, I think, from what he was saying there, we could definitely expect to see someone come in at some point. It might not happen, but it's a possible route. And I think given, who we have there at the minute, you might want to think about bringing someone in. To be fair, I think DeAndre Swift wasn't excellent, but I think we were doing him a disservice to say that he was, terrible. Considering the running back room that he was running behind, or the offensive line room rather, and also the play calling. You were on plums before you even started. So, for me, I think we give him the benefit of the doubt and see how he kind of progresses back in a sort of Ben Johnson system again. And then see who can join him as well. But the last thing I just wanted to kind of touch on, because as I say, Ant's not here, so I'm sort of running the show on my own. I'm just going to open this Guinness quickly. Last thing I wanted to touch on was draft grades. Now, this is going to be more of a sort of rant for me now. I can understand people want to look at the draft that's just happened and say that, oh yeah, that's an A, that's a B, that's a whatever. Do you know what I mean? But realistically, no one's actually played a down of football yet in the scheme with the other players under the coaching, all that kind of stuff. So there's absolutely no way to know who's won this or who's won that. That's the first thing. But for me, the second thing is, as Bears fans, I want us to get away from this situation where we are thinking about winning the off season, because who gives a fuck about winning the off season when you don't win anything in the actual season? So for me, we need to stop kind of like dwelling too much on that and kind of look forward. You know, like you can complain and say that I'm getting down on having a bit of fun with draft grading and all this kind of stuff. And maybe I am a little bit, right? I'll give you that. But for me, I just wanted to very, very quickly touch on that and just mention that I think it's a lot of shite. And Lee also agrees with me here. The draft grades are a fool's gold, and you do have to wait 2 to 3 years to see what has happened, which means we can start sort of looking back on the sort of 22 draft from and see what we sort of think of that. And we'll maybe do a show over the off season looking at the previous drafts and sort of grading Ryan Poles a wee bit more based on stuff that's happened 2-3 years ago, because there have been questionable picks there, and there's been things happen that and players taken and positions taken for me that I thought were crazy. But yeah, I think Lee, you're right. I think that's a show in itself. So we'll devote more substantial time to having a go at Ryan Poles for that. But what we'll do in the moment though is we'll just let this kind of settle. Let us enjoy the fact that we picked up some good players. Yeah, Matt, draft grades are almost as dumb as redrafts. Yeah, exactly. It's all hypothetical. But listen, guys, thanks very much for joining us today. Just a quick sort of 45-minute show today, just to kind of talk about the picks that we hadn't really spoken about on draft night. We were only on for night one of the draft, so we haven't had a chance to really talk about anything. Ant will be back on next week, where we'll sort of get his take on everything that we've sort of talked about, and his opinion on the picks. We're going to have Alex Shapiro on next Wednesday, and we'll talk to him a bit more in depth about these players and basically the Bears and where they're going for this upcoming season. So we've got that to look forward to. But thanks very much, guys. If everybody as well could like the show on X. You can get us on YouTube now as well, if you can go on there and subscribe. As I say, we're only in our second episode, so we're still sort of building things up and trying to get to where we want to be. So again, thanks very much for all the guys that have tuned in early on. I said we had about 300 folk on draft night for a show that only set up a couple of days before. It was excellent. And we've got, over 100 folk watching just now. So again, I really, really appreciate it. Ant does as well. And we'll obviously talk to you next time. But yeah, so there's nothing else really to go over unless there's any more comments in the chat. Nothing there. No problem at all. All right, super. Well, thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it. And bear the fuck down.